Hey guys, Ponce here. Today I'll be talking to you guys about the proposed changes for Season 4 slash pre-Season 4 for the jungle. Riot just made their sort of announcement post thing and sort of their stated intentions earlier today. So I'll be just going over the main points of what they were talking about and how I feel that'll affect the game and all that kind of stuff. Same as my other videos. And as always, if you want the original post, like the original Riot, this is what they said, and you can read it for yourself stuff. I will be putting a link to both this post and the Reddit thread they made in the description below, so you can click on either of those and get the information for yourself. But yeah, let's just go over what I felt were the important parts of this point. Um, Now, getting right to sort of their main goals, our new season jungling goals, stated right here. What they want is flexibility in the jungle, and what they mean by that is just sort of different play styles working, or they want different play styles to work. Maybe a carry jungle, not just the tankish jungle that becomes so useful, mid and late game unless he's snowballing hard. More resources, we'll get into that in a bit, and more comeback mechanisms to the jungle. So if you get counter ganked early, you're not going to be worthless for the next 20 minutes kind of thing, because that's pretty frustrating. But yeah, more in terms of specifics, what Riot wants to do is they'll be adding an extra camp in the jungle. So that will bring red side, with the red buff side, will have 3 minion camps, and the blue buff side will also have 3 minion camps. What it's going to be is, if you read these threads a little bit more, it's stated that it's going to be a single large red wraith, so it's a single target, large, more powerful monster. It's not balanced around AoE, so that makes it a very strong candidate for just like blowing your smite on. So I don't know how much they can balance single target DPS around stuff like that when you can just blow your smite on it, but we'll see how it happens. Um, Now, I don't really know where they're going to position it. They haven't stated specifically. Uh, but I'm just kind of imagining, like, imagine you're on the purple side of the jungle, and you're on the blue side, right? You guys know where the blue buff is. You know where the wolves are. I imagine they'll probably put that in that, that skinny passageway, um, that's right beside the bottom lane, and there's a little dip right near your own base. Like for some reason the trees dip down a little bit and then point kind of towards the wolf camp. Maybe they'll expand that a little bit, make it a little bit bigger, and then put the single wraith here. I don't know. That's just my guess. They could rearrange the jungle tree positioning stuff significantly and put it in a number of places. I don't know. It was kind of my guess, but it's not really relevant in any case. We'll find out when this stuff is released. Um, Now, aside from that, jungle monsters will now scale with champion level. It's going to take the average level of people on your team, and that will be the monster's level. So basically, what's going to happen is they'll scale throughout the game a lot better than they currently do. They'll provide more gold and EXP as you go along. And if as a jungle you fall behind, the monsters are going to be higher level than you, right? And they're still not going to be that hard, mid game, I would imagine. But they'll be giving you extra EXP, so you have a chance to sort of come back in the game in terms of your level. Now that's quite nice. Um, I think that's something that's sort of needed because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that junglers rarely sort of lose kind of or a role versus role sort of sense. Like it's not this jungler is better than this jungler, therefore he can counter jungle this guy and he just destroys him. It's not like a lane, like top lane where I'm better than you at top lane and outside of any ganks I'm just gonna beat you. It's more what I've noticed happening in terms of when a jungler gets really shut down is basically all the lanes on his team are losing, and then there is absolutely no help or pressure to keep people out of his jungle, and then like lanes start spilling into your jungle, and the jungler can counter jungle you very easily, and it's just extremely annoying. It turns into a complete smorgasbord for the enemy team in your jungle, and you just don't have any control of anything. It's sort of like a worse version of your being camped by the enemy jungler kind of thing as a lane thing. So, if you're getting counter jungled and losing, having some sort of comeback potential, that's nice. Jungles tend to snowball pretty hard. So, aside from that, they want more gold flow options for junglers. This little thing here. They didn't get into too many specifics, like really specific stuff, but there's a second post in this thread here where they're kind of talking about what they want, all the different, or some of the possible item changes they want to introduce. For example, Wriggle's Lantern, they say, now the item for farming junglers grants very bad combat stats, but gives a very big increase in gold from jungle monsters. I kind of like that. When I jungle, I tend to be kind of more that farmish style jungle, which, hasn't been as effective in season 3. Um, but no, I like the idea that that could be neat. Spear of the Ancient Golem is now, I'll just read it again, now intended for support junglers who will move with the team more than farm the jungle, allows you to bank the gold for a little bit of time, which you can cash in by killing jungle monsters. So you basically kind of leave your lane and then maybe help with objectives like, taking towers and, at least trying to gank or maybe actually ganking, and then you go back in your jungle, and then you get a bunch of gold. That's kind of neat. I like the idea behind that one. Spear of the Elder Lizard, more focused towards early mid team fights, and objective control will grant gold on champion deaths and Baron or Dragon slash Baron. So this kind of seems like I'm assuming it's gonna be very combat stat heavy. That's kind of what's implied by the team fight thing here and objective control. And it's probably more so the choice for a very confident jungler who's very confident in his ganks, has strong ganks, and it is very offensive in nature. So that should be neat, because if you don't get those champion kills and stuff, this item could be slightly wasted. Spirit of the Spectral Wraith. Now intended to help mage junglers who are hurt by not having blue buff and needing to spend too much resources to clear jungle mid-late game. Will give health and mana back equal to a percentage of spell damage you deal to monsters. So yeah, your lane spell vamp people won't be building this item anymore. They kind of mentioned that specifically. Like Vlad and Co. will still have their selfish spell vamp item, it just won't be Spirit Wraith. So I don't know if that means there's going to be a new spell vamp item. I think the game's kind of overdue for one. There's not too much choice in terms of spell vamp items, so that would be neat. But the kinds of junglers that would build this, I suppose maybe like Fiddlesticks or maybe even a Moo. I don't know. Maybe like a Rammus. Or basically, people who tend to run into mana problems. I guess you could build this thing. I'll have to see the actual numbers behind this item before I can say anything too definitive. But we'll see how that one goes. Now back to the original post. The other thing they really want to emphasize is that farming jungles are better. Like it's come up a couple times in the various points I've mentioned here, but they kind of mention more uh, specifically in a number of instances. Yeah, farming junglers need to be better. Now, my kind of take on this is, isn't that pretty much how everyone plays anyway? I mean, I know when junglers are being really effective, you notice them a lot and they're ganking lanes a lot. But if you kind of take League of Legends population as an average, I kind of get the feeling most junglers are sitting there farming all the time anyway. So they're probably just buffing a pre-existing, very dominant play style, whether it is or isn't the correct thing to do anyway, or currently. But it's really going to be interesting to see how good carry jungles become and how viable they become on a more consistent basis. It sounds really cool, but this also sounds very dangerous because, for example, I'm going to use Aatrox as an example. Oftentimes, you stick people into the jungle who just kind of suck at laning. Um, or have very dangerous laning phases who can like snowball out of control in either direction. You just put them in jungle for consistency. Aatrox is like the best example I can think of off the top of my head. And you have sort of a safe, consistent gold income for him. Now, if Aatrox, as a jungler, actually gets ganks off and has lane class farm without the risk of being in a lane, he becomes really, really powerful. So if you can do that stuff like that safely, just by farming your jungle endlessly. Well, we'll see what that does to the balance of the game. I mean, there's so many things changing in Season 4, I can't just consider that and say it's going to be overpowered or whatever. But the other thing, typically it's like melee carry. So Master Yi's the other thing that sort of came to mind, but I don't really know too much about him since they re-nerfed him. Presumably he'd still be quite effective with a lot of farm. I mean, he is a melee carry after all. That's just what they kind of do. They're unsafe, but potentially very powerful. Nasus, I've heard mentioned by some other people elsewhere as a potential that could get kind of scary if he's allowed to sit there, a million camps and just farms all day. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with champions like that. Now, NASA specifically, I suspect he might actually get nerfed on his own, aside from anything else, fairly quickly. Not because I think he's overpowered, because I don't. But I think he might, or at least they're going to change some stuff around with him, because he kind of promotes bad gameplay, to sort of use an old Riot, phrase from a while back. They haven't said it in a while, but he tends to promote sort of this very passive. You sit there and farm, and you heal up infinitely, and you sort of hit this threshold where eventually you can't really harass them away. And Riot, the very least, they used to a lot more so nerf sort of this boring, sustain forever playstyle. I suspect they may bring back the old stick and knock that one down a peg or two. But that's just my guess. We'll see what happens. It'll also have a lot to do with how the new jungle works out and stuff like that. Because especially if this happens, it really, I think they'll be shunting Nasus back into the jungle a lot. Like people still play him in jungle, but even more so than now. People will probably stop taking him top lane. Period. If farming jungle becomes a viable thing. But those are my thoughts on the matter for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around. Goodbye.